It's my pleasure this morning to welcome Charlie. Charlie is one of my very best friends, as many of you know. Charlie is a graduate of Villanova University, Yale Divinity School, the Yale Institute of Sacred Music, and received his PhD in Religious Studies from the University of Virginia. His dissertation was entitled Drama Alone is Credible, Hans Urs von Balthasar and the Interpretive Work of Theater and Performance in 20th Century Christian Thought. That is quite the title. He asked me if I wanted to read everything after the colon. I said, oh, yes. Charlie is a scholar of religion and theater and theology, and so we're very pleased to have him here today to talk to us about the theology of play. I'll say that I was thinking about how to introduce Charlie, and I think what I'll say is this. Everything good that I've ever said to anybody, not to mention any of you, about God is due either to Charlie Gillespie or to Jewel Bickle. Anything bad that I've said to anybody about God, whether you or somebody else, is something that they've tried to talk me out of. So with that, Charlie.
What an introduction. Well, good morning, everyone. It's hard to follow that, especially because I was just confronted by my dissertation title. My favorite bit of feedback from my committee was, Gillespie, this needs a colonoscopy. Everything after the colon, cut it. I wanted it to be long so the title would continue and people just would keep thinking, wow, it must be so brilliant if it can hold this many words on a cover. In any event, whenever I do events like this, whether here at St. Mark's or in the outside world, I like to start with a little greeting game. And since we don't have time for me to come around the room to meet all of you personally, I'm going to ask you to help me out a little bit. Play along. First, I want you to turn to someone near you and give them a really shy little wave, like this. Turn to someone near, just shy little wave. That experience you just had, that's my heart bursting with gratitude that you might play along with me this morning. But I'm a little scared you might not want to. Okay, good, we got that away, shake it off. I do not see arms flapping. It is only 9. I make people do this at the 8. Come now. Second, can you please turn to someone near you and give them a little high five or a fist bump or a sort of proud head nod. You might say, good job, or nice work, or congratulations. You can even give yourselves a round of applause if you'd like. That strange moment, that's my way of congratulating you for all the effort you took to be here and your willingness to play a little this morning. See, we clapped already, so now you should feel guilty if you don't play along. All right, we got it out of the way. Shake it off. Finally, last and least, please turn to someone somewhere across the room and offer them what I call my trademarked air hug. Father Justin, would you join me in demonstrating this, please? All right, give it a try. Feel strange enough yet? And also to those of you streaming at home, it's my way of saying just how much joy I have to be here with you all. You know, you can tell I don't often use PowerPoint because I had reminders for that whole little thing. But let's keep going. I'd like you to turn to someone you're sitting near and to share one of your favorite things to play. Maybe this is a game or a sport or a piece of music, whatever comes to mind when I ask you the question, what do you like to play? Or how do you like to play? Be as specific as you can. What's your example? Share it with someone nearby. Play means a lot of different things, doesn't it? A lot of different things. We'll talk about them this morning. All right, just a quick straw poll, right? Who among us said a sport or a game that you play outside or some sort of physical activity? Good, most people. We got a lot of sports players. Who here said a game of some sort of board game or a video game or some other kind of game? Very good, I like games. Who else chose a piece of music or an instrument or some aspect of artistic creativity? Anyone at all? A couple of people, very, very good. Who said something else? My favorite that I overheard was, when I think about play, I like to rest. It was my favorite. I'm sitting here going, sleep, a thing I miss, love, desire, that would be awesome. Play is a complicated theme, isn't it? I'm delighted to be here to talk with you this morning, to talk about two of my favorite things to do. I love playing. Seriously. These two phrases don't often go together. Play and seriousness. It's like the mix of a delightfully homemade fish fillet and an open-plan office microwave. That joke really stunk. Play is a seriousness problem. Whenever we're playful, we're not being serious, right? Playing is all about the loosey-goosey, childlike absurdity. Play describes a silly and spontaneous race with a shopping cart at a grocery store, or singing songs with ridiculous accents for no apparent reason. That last one is probably just me. I find there's something wonderfully cathartic about popping up from my desk on the way to meet my next K-Cup self-imposed guilt drip of coffee, and when I blurt out the Kit Kat jingle in some horrendous faux accent, you all think I'm kidding. I'm not. I mean, it's not quite French, but like trying to be cool and jazzy, it devolves into some sort of embarrassment, like I get up from the desk and hello, person who signs my paycheck. Didn't send that email. Now, I do get some looks from my colleagues. To quote one of them, "You're cut from a different kind of cloth, aren't you?" And we love that. And I'm lucky, certainly privileged, that I get to be playful where I work, especially in the classroom. As I'll argue this morning, play is necessary for thinking and speaking rightly about God. And play is certainly necessary for living a Christian life fully alive. Not everyone is so lucky that they get to be playful while also being serious. Play is risky for a couple of reasons I'll enumerate as we go along. But we need to sit with that play-seriousness relationship for just a minute longer. So let's play a game. It's an easy game, but I want you to try it. Seriously, really try it. Don't be afraid of looking silly. I just did that little song routine. I'm at my desk preparing my notes, and I can already feel the shame of that moment. If I can willingly plan to look silly, maybe you can play a little too. Edit, you probably wouldn't believe this unless I included it in the PowerPoint. So look to a person sitting near you. Remember, the closest exit may be behind you. Introduce yourself if you don't know them. Reintroduce yourself if you do, because that's so much more fun. Take a moment and decide which of you will be player A and which of you will be player B. Find a partner, someone, anyone. If you don't have a partner, turn somewhere else. It's very easy. Our first participant is already fleeing to the back of the room. Does everyone have a partner? Right? Close enough. All right. Who are my players A? Who are my players A? Notice it pluralizes like attorneys general. Who are my players A? Very good. Players A, your line. Very simple. Please give me that. I need it. Try it. Very good. Players A, congratulations. Who are my players B? Players B. Players B, you have a different line. This is where this is going to get complicated. Players B, your line is, you can't have it. I need it. Try it. This, my friends, is a classic improv game. And I'd like you to try it. Just keep having the conversation. Keep saying it different ways. But oh my gosh, get it. Now, I don't know what it is. That's up for you to decide. But you only have one line. So if your first tactic doesn't work, play with it a little and try another. Does anyone have any questions about how to play? If you do, I will not answer them. So let's get started. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Players A, take it away. You did. Congratulations, a scene of cooperation. All right, find a way to bring your scene to a close. Don't know how. It was supposed to be simple, right? Who here, quick show of hands, who here is trying to figure out where this is going, or what point this has, or why we are doing any of this? Congratulations, my friends. That instinct to find a purpose or a meaning outside of what we're doing is the number one inhibitor to figuring out what we mean by play. That's a classic improv game. Actors and teachers use it as a way to demonstrate the importance of choices for performance and desires for a dramatic scene. You notice that any one line can be played so many different ways. But you see, play and serious cannot be simple opposites. How many of you imagined it as something really, really vital? Something extraordinarily important? A couple of hands, right? Those of us confident you wanted it? Very good. Think about it. If you overheard that conversation on a street corner and you didn't know what it was, and you heard someone saying, "Please, give me that. I need it. Please, give me that. I need it." That could be a life or death situation. But in order for us to notice it, it had to be played. Does everyone see that relationship? We so quickly assume that play and seriousness have nothing to do with one another that we forget that we have to be playful sometimes to notice what we take seriously. We know that, of course. Professionals play with dedication and intensity. From a basketball player's love for the game to a nimble musician tickling the ivories or pulling out all the stops like I just overheard from the organ, which was great. Play well done can be a sight to behold or a sound to swell with. That's also the case for animals or children or games. Think about the stories we tell about the squirrels playing tag in the backyard, or a secret history of a toy collection, or how many of us are going to tune in to watch an American football game later today. Play presents itself for our consideration, because when we play, we also perform. Philosophers and theorists have long been fascinated by play because we humans like to watch it happen. For some reason, play can be fun to witness, just like it's fun to do. My institution, Sacred Heart University, has a varsity esports team. Now, trust me, I was not a varsity athlete at any point in my life, but it boggles my mind that you could fill a stadium for people to watch folks play a video game, until I thought more about it. What's the difference between watching this kind of game and watching another? Play draws our attention. Why is that the case? I want to suggest to you that play, oh wow, I even had a slide for this complicated point. Look at that. I want to suggest to you that play has three key characteristics. It expresses freedom, it expresses material, and it gives life. So what do I mean by that? One, play needs to be free. You're going to get your money's worth this morning because you're going to get a real $20 fancy vocabulary word. This is one of the most provocative and generative ideas derived from the analysis of play. It's also the most complicated, so bear with me, but if you want to put on your seatbelt, go for it. Play is one of the only autotelic activities we can imagine. Most of you are going, what? That is the right response. If someone comes up to you and says, autoteleology, yay, you turn and walk the other way. Autoteleology, yay! Autotelic is a fancy word for that which seeks its own end. Auto, like from the self, like in an autobiography, when you write yourself, or an automobile where it moves itself. Telic comes from the Greek word telos, meaning goal or end. So if play is autotelic, it doesn't serve any purpose other than itself. That's the difference between actually eating something and playing at eating something. We eat because we need to eat. Making a sandwich serves an end, the need for lunch. Eating serves the end of hunger, a reflection of the human desire for food to keep on going. Playing sandwich maker like a mime, right, might look fun. It might be really great, but I'm still going to be hungry. Luckily, the world's greatest coffee hour is so close to hand. Think about it. It's the same for playing air guitar, if any of you are sort of armchair musicians. I can keep playing as long as I want, but it doesn't serve a purpose other than my joy. The point can be extended even to board games. A round of Settlers of Catan or Monopoly will not colonize an island any more than a round of chutes and ladders will help you climb onto the roof of your house. Now, I know a couple of you are thinking of those really strong objections. Think of games of chance like poker. They cost something to play, and sometimes they can even be treated like a full-time job. We've already included examples like professional athletes, or even you might be thinking professional actors. But notice that in these cases, the game or activity was already pointed towards some end outside the game itself. The playing hasn't changed. The proof is in the pudding. For my theater teacher, Bertolt Brecht, who I love, I did not actually study with Brecht, I just read a lot of him. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. One plays poker by the same rules, whether you're playing for fun or playing for keeps. This idea of an autotelic activity is extremely important because it reveals why play is such an interesting topic. All right, we're all bored with the philosophy, so let's do something more interesting. Play needs stuff. In order to play, you have to have something that can play. You can't find play lurking out in the world in itself. Play is an event that happens. I know, that's another complicated concept. Think about it this way. Where is your lap located? Right now, where is it? If you stand up, where did it go? No, where'd it go? Did it vanish into thin air? Look, now you see it. No, you don't. Play is like that. It's what we call in the business performative. It exists only because it is done. We're not going to find play. We have to find things playing. But that means play can establish boundaries. That's the difference between when we play a game and everything outside the game. Johann Heutzinger, one of the founders of play studies, believe it or not, there's a whole field called play studies, wrote an early book on the anthropology of the play element in culture. He suggests that play suspends the rules of the ordinary for a specified time in a specified place. Play begins and ends. That's what differentiates playing from not playing. So let's get to the best part. Play brings stuff to life. Many thinkers begin by identifying play as a movement to and fro. Have you ever played with a button or something in your pocket or a little bit of paper or fidgeted with something while waiting in a waiting room? Become bored at a fully alive faith forum in the morning, so need something to occupy your hands or your time? That's how play begins. A movement back and forth. It brings something to life. Play is one of the reasons that I could go like this and suddenly start to converse with myself. Play gives something of our joy to the world in which we live. It sounds trite and childish, but think about it. Play is so radically free that it conjures questions about why humans choose to play the sort of games we choose to play. Let's try that sentence one more time. Play is so radically free, it asks us to think about why we choose the games we like to play. Play comes with some risks because it asks us to admit that our world might mean more to us than we ordinarily let on. When we play, we trust that our play partners hold our vulnerability in their care. So play is also an odd incentive to keep going. All right, so what in heaven's name does all this have to do with theology? I'll end with 3 brief theological implications, and then I want to make sure we have some time to talk together. I want to suggest that thinking about a theology of play helps us make sense about what God is doing with all those plays and players and stories we may love to see or do. There's something about thinking about the world as a world stage where all the men and women are merely players. They have their entrances and their exits, and one man in his lifetime might play many parts, as a way of reflecting on what it means for us to be an ensemble in the Church of God. I also think that play might give us a clue to thinking about what we do while we're praying. Remember that fancy word, autotelic? something done only for its own sake? Ever thought of praying that way? Not prayer that looks to get something, or prayer that looks to be something, or prayer that looks to express something, but a prayer that just is, being in the presence of God. I wonder if we could play that way too. Finally, I suggest that a playful God might actually be an image we can think about. Play can be a sign of love because of all the trust it entails. Can we imagine a God who plays with and in the world God creates? In fact, the creative presentation of playing gives us some theological language to talk about how the way God creates our world right now. Play helps us think about a creation that is unnecessary for any reason other than its own joy. Play helps us describe, perhaps, God's abiding love for God's creatures as a pure gift. Perhaps that's one of the many reasons why we find God as a source of life and joy. Ever thought about the Trinity as just an eternal game? It keeps going. It keeps playing. It never becomes bored. Oh, well, that was serendipitously well performed. I have a quote from Hugo Rahner, but none of you want to go through the long quote. Quite literally, the long quote is on the screen. So I go, look, I prepared a quote, and I free you from it. But you might have some questions or comments or thoughts, and I wanted to leave some time for conversation. The best part about play is it has a beginning and an end. I think it's slightly more playful when we prove we've been together since the beginning. So I won't pause with a, and I'm done moment. I'll instead go, tell us what you think. Play along.
Please do wait until we bring the microphone to you, just so that you can be heard in the room and on the stream. And to get us started, Charlie, I actually have a question for you.
Oh, my.
So I'm really taken with what you said about play and prayer. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you could clarify something for us.
Of course.
Do you mean that playing, like playing Settlers of Catan or playing basketball, can prepare you to pray? Like it's good preparation because it like goes with the grain of what you're trying to do from like 7 o'clock to 7:30 when you're saying your prayers or meditating or something like that? Or do you mean that playing is prayer? So is play preparation for prayer, or can play be a kind of prayer? Like, can I play basketball? That's a joke for all of you. Can I play basketball and it be prayer?
So first answer, no, you cannot play basketball. I say that with the full authority of my PhD.
But the rector can.
That's true. No, actually, I think this is a great question because it points out that we're trying to think about play, or at least I am, you might want to as well, as something that's done for its own sake. So as soon as we make play preparation for something else that's more serious or more better, it stops being play in some sense, right? So if playing basketball is just preparation for more playing of basketball, we'd stop thinking about it as play. Let's go to the next step then. If we are praying basketball, living fully alive as a beloved child of God, enacting something in the world that God has given us the gifts, tools, and ability to do, and perhaps doing it in such a beautiful and interesting way that it catches someone's attention, how is that not prayer? A chance to be fully alive as a creature of God. So I would say, no, it's that moment when you're playing, truly praying, and you lose track of time. Everyone have that experience of that moment? It's a symbol of eternity.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Great question.
Jim.
To provide context for what you've just presented, could you go back and restate your thesis proposition again?
Yes. My friends, this is a question asked of Dr. Gillespie every time I speak. There are actually 4 theses at play in this presentation, but I'll just make one quite clear. Play is an opportunity to be fully alive. We don't think about it that way because we're afraid to no longer be serious. We are hesitant and scared to actually live in a moment. What I've suggested this morning is that play is a chance to imagine what a full human life might look like, a chance to be simply for the joy of being. Does that help or no? Please.
So your description of plays and players and theaters as an analogy brought to mind a TED Talks I'd seen recently by Adam Driver, who was, some people may know as Kylo Ren. He was in the Marine Corps and was analogizing between the commitment to common mission and the loyalty he felt in the Marine Corps to what he felt in the theater. And I'm curious, as you think of play and theater as an analogy, what does that say to us about our relationship with each other?
Eric, that's an excellent question. Two responses to it off the top of my head. The first, at a high level, is one of the ways that Driver connects the play of acting and the work of a community, perhaps at war during his time in the Marines, is through a common idea that both of these ideas share, which is either teamwork, ensemble building, something of a community. And we want to emphasize that first because it's really important. Notice that this connection that Driver draws on is because in both instances, it's humans doing something together. And I think that's part of what connects all of these different analogies. It's about being together with others, serving a common end, right? One way where I think thinking more critically about the relationship between play and seriousness can help us is it points out that play is risky. One of the risks, then, is how we play. Are we playing in such a way to upbuild and share and bring more people in? Or are we playing and praying in such a way that pushes out, that excludes, that marginalizes, or causes difference? I think there might even be playful ways to think about the work of nations or communities, even confronting horrendous evil. And I think that's part of what we might discover by thinking about a life fully alive as a life of play. We want the game to go on. And I wonder if that's something the Driver's getting at there. A chance to be with others, to keep going, to help those who are our friends. Does that help with your question? Okay.
My work experience in early childhood led me often into the area of play, and particularly with children with special needs or nonverbal children. And I think that there's a great concern today about the increase in intelligence things rather than play with early childhood. And if you don't know how to play in your little years, you forget how to play when you're older.
It's an excellent, excellent comment. I can say nothing other than to nod vigorously in the front. And that returns to one of the points I've been trying to suggest today, which is that when we instrumentalize play, when we think of it only as for something else, we miss out on learning how to do it well. And it can make it hard for us to remember how to play later on in life. That was a great comment. Thank you so much for your work.
Charlie, I have so many questions here, but I'm going to start with the easy
So
one.
do I.
What do you think God thinks of the Super Bowl?
Oh, tonight? Yeah, God thinks the only one being judged tonight is me for being tempted to say, does the Christ play for the Kansas City Chief Priests, or will we be refined like 49er gold? Right? That's all God thinks about today. I think God delights in it, right? The commercials are fun.
So you've spoken really interestingly in Robin's comment about play, and so little kid sports in America today has become a type of machine where I would contend has taken play out of the game, where kids are now going to pitching coaches so that they can get a college scholarship and get $1 million signing bonus when that's 1 in a trillion kids who gets this. I wonder if you might say something, commentary about a play in the United States today with kids and the generation below you and what you think of all that.
Oh my, an invitation to feel like I am old and wizened. Two thoughts. The first goes back to Robin's comment about the importance of play in early childhood development and education. We know that play is one of the things that humans do really well because other creatures also do it really well. And I actually think play is one of the remarkable ways to cross gaps, boundaries, chasms of difference. So what I mean by that is you can play with someone even if you don't speak the same language as them. You might speak the language of the game you're playing. I mean this down to the literal level of I can make a point just by gesturing and speaking gibberish. I was part of a theater company during my time at Yale that spent a summer in Tanzania, and we developed an entire piece with a community that spoke only Kiswahili. I do not speak a word of Kiswahili, and we developed the play by speaking gibberish with gestures. It was a chance to figure things out together. That's one sense in which I don't know if the state of play in our life together today is actually that playful, because it's not given much room to run, to discover, to be spontaneous and silly, because it's working so hard for some end it hopes to achieve. How often do you think about play as, I'll work really hard now and be really great at it, and then eventually when I'm the best, I will play and it will be fun? That seems to pull the rug out from under what play does for us as humans in the first place. So that's something that worries me. And it specifically worries me in my classrooms, because I'll be honest, a number of my students feel very afraid to say what they think in front of others, because they are very rarely told that it's a good thing to miss a shot. It's a great thing to go for an attempt, an idea, a scene, a choice, and have it fall flat and miserable and make us all laugh a little bit. Because you can't start to think through a hard text, can't start to play with a big idea if you're too afraid to get it wrong at first. And so I wish we would have a chance to think of more of our life as playful and serious at the same time. It's a great question, Father Peter.
Marianne.
Well, what I chose at this stage of my life, because I can't do sports anymore, is poetry.
Wonderful.
And poetry certainly can be an analogy. It engages you with other people. It allows you to be creative. It allows you to be intellectual. It allows you to truly express yourself and exchange ideas with other people, ideas that you might never, ever engage in at a cocktail party.
That's a beautiful comment. Poetry is remarkably important, for me at least, in the sense that I find poetic language in my life to be a beautiful moment when words play together and you discover meanings that would never be intended otherwise. It's also, I'm sorry, so I don't know your name. Marianne, thank you so much for that comment about poetry as well, because I love this thought that poetry is something that you might never talk about at a cocktail party, like meditating on the beauty of a flower, or thinking, as Gerard Manley Hopkins does, about the Christ that plays in 10,000 places. There was a whole moment where I used a bunch of poetic examples this morning, and they were cut for time and slides. So thank you for bringing those in. That is not a plant audience question. I'm just delighted. So, Mary, a great observation. Yes, please. I know there's a mic to make sure that our friends who are streaming, who couldn't join us this morning,
I just was thinking, it's so affirming that play is something that keeps us alive in God, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to the gym for an hour and then I'm going to come back and do my scripture reading or something, but it can be so analogous to living in the moment and living in the moment in anything else you do. So it would be playing that sport that you love to play, and if you're really with God during that, hopefully you are, it may be evangelizing in a way, or I don't really like that word, but you're being the vessel for God at that time when you're playing, in the same way that if you were at a cocktail party. I mean, really, is there anything different? If you're in that moment and being affirmed that it's okay to just be in the moment and be with God and do what you are wanting to do.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thought. I think I'm toying with coining a verb, which you might think about it as gospeling. That is, acting in such a way that it gives some news that is good about the world. You're right, you're onto something, that when we play in the presence of God, we find ourselves doing exactly what we hope to do as a community at prayer, being some beacon and light for what is good, true, and beautiful about the world. It's a great thought. Y'all are smart. Oh my God, the phalanx of hands from the back. I'm up here just quaking. I'm already sitting here going, did I adequately defend my thesis? Did I adequately choose a thesis?
Okay, so what part does competition play in prayer, in play? Does that screw it up?
No.
Or make it more important, or what?
Thank you, Jude. I was going to ask.
Absolutely spectacular question. Competition is important, but it is not everything in play. Here's my point. Is it more fun to play a game if your opponent is playing as hard as they can and you are playing as hard as you can? More fun. Or is it more fun if one person is going, I'm not really into this today. Do not pass go. I take all of your money. We're done. My point here is that competition can push us to be more fully alive, but it's not a competition that tries to conquer. It's a competition that tries to find some joy. So I would say the distinction is not play versus competition, but what's the purpose of our playing? Why are we doing this? Am I just trying to win, or am I trying to have fun playing a game? These don't need to be mutually exclusive. Ask any of our friends or colleagues who are professional musicians or professional athletes, and they will be very, very, very clear that they want to play to the best of their ability because that's what allows it to be virtuous. This is one of my favorite etymologies. The word virtue and the word virtuosity, to act a good human life and to play an instrument or do art really well, come from the same root word. I delight in that because it gets to this point. It's not bad to be pushed to be the best version of who we are. It's a difficult thing. Martin Luther King has a wonderful sermon about what he calls the drum major instinct. And at the beginning of the sermon, you think to yourself, oh, wow, this is going to be yet another claim that we need to be cooperative and work together, and I shouldn't compete with others, and I get it. But it has a twist at the end, and it's a wonderful twist, where he argues that it's not a bad thing to want to be recognized. It's not a bad thing to want to lead. It's not a bad thing to try as hard as you possibly can to win. Just win for justice. Be a drum major with love. Go and demonstrate that you're the best at doing what God wants humans to do. So that's a very good question. Please.
Charlie, in the history of culture, there have been the rise of the leisure class. And in our world, we have the ever rise of entertainment. And Miroslav's latest book, he had some phrase in there that we're going to entertain ourselves into idiocy or something like that. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you might comment on play, entertainment, and idiocy.
All right, so as an idiot, I will entertain you as I talk about play. This is a great question. One, the existence of the restriction of play, leisure, and delight to a few instead of the construction of societies that create those conditions for the many is patently unjust. To be human is to have the capacity to play. So every time we allow our societies, we allow our communities, we allow our own lives to say that play is not important for being, we've missed the point. Second thing, though, is there's something about entertainment that gets at the risk of play I talked a little bit about earlier. When we just think that everything is meant to give us a momentary spark of delight or joy or enjoyment, we're only thinking about ourselves. This is a tricky point, but I think it's what gets to idiocy. When we simply want to stream or to read or to hide in a corner and talk to no one, that is when we try to make entertainment into pure escapism. Now, there's nothing wrong with escaping. I love escaping. Immediately after this is over, I will escape the room and hide in a corner and think about preaching, where then I will escape from the room and hide in a corner. That's not true at all. That's what is known as the mendicum jossicum, the sort of false premise. Can't speak English. This is such a good question. You see how in trying to be entertaining, I make my point idiotic. Does everyone see it? Right? There's something about our desire to never have to engage, compete, or play with others that leads us to seek a kind of what I might call an empty joy, a kind of happiness all by myself. That is what leads to a kind of community where we can't play together anymore, I think, partially because we no longer agree on the rules of the game. Does that answer your question, Father Peter?
So I've always thought about play, at least in the younger years, as an opportunity for relationship building and community making and winning and losing, learning how to do that. So I hear what you're saying about individual play, but I really think that play is something more than just what you get out of it.
Of course.
Yeah, it's something you have to work at, and I'm concerned today in what I saw as I was leaving the school system that kids used to go out and just figure out a game to play together. And now they were going out and just running around and pushing each other down because they're so busy with their thumbs on their games at home that they've forgotten how to get along, and that piece of play is kind of missing.
Robin, thank you for that comment, because I think it gets to a point that I want to emphasize as we close, which is that we also sometimes forget how to play. I know that I have recently. I get caught up in doing all the work and trying to be perfect and trying to be polished and trying to do something impressive. And I wonder if we've all lost a little bit about what it means to just go find some others and to say, let's play together. What will we discover? It's hard. It's not easy. It's a great comment.
Thanks, Charlie. I wish you had a longer period of time because I have about 25 more questions.
You now know how my students feel.
No. It's really, really fun to have you here. And it's even more fun because you and Justin are such best friends and best theological compatriots. And I'm going to release you here so you can go hide in a corner before you preach. But I want to say to all of you, first I want to say thank you. Really, really wonderful. And I also want everyone to know that next week we're going to have Christopher Mad Dog Russo, our own devout Episcopalian at St. Mark's, talk about his work in the world of play. As you may or may not know, Mad Dog is one of the two people credited with really starting sports talk radio. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Chris is at the Super Bowl right now. We originally were going to have him last Sunday, but he had to go to the Super Bowl to get there a week ahead of time, speaking of the issues around play and entertainment and the megalith that all is. But anyway, you have such a great playful heart, and we all delight in that. It really is. It's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for coming this morning.